Nikon have announced the brand new Z6 Mark II and the Z7 Mark II as well, and I'm lucky enough to have my hands on both of the cameras here. Now these cameras in particular are actually running pre-production firmware, so I can't show you output from the cameras, but we can talk about what's new, we can talk about what's the same, and we can talk about general kind of thoughts and a bit of spec as well. So this will be a short kind of first look video at both of these cameras, and then hopefully next week or within the next couple of weeks, we'll be able to bring you a full review when we can use full production firmware, go take all kinds of photos, video, really test these cameras out. But first of all, let's dive into what is the same with these, because to look at these, they look very, very similar to the Mark I. In fact, you'd probably be forgiven for not being able to spot really much of a difference. The bodies are incredibly similar, but I don't think that's a bad thing. I think the bodies of the Mark Is were already actually really nice. They're very comfortable to hold with the grip. So I don't think that's a problem there at all. There's a lot of ergonomic placement of buttons and things like that. Most of the improvements with the actual cameras inside, it's how it runs, it's how it's built and stuff like that. So we're gonna dive into exactly what is new with these cameras. So probably the biggest difference with the Mark II, both of these are now running dual EXPEED 6 processors. So that's 2 processors instead of 1, which obviously is gonna run a lot faster, right? And that does bring a suite of improvements to these cameras. So you've now got 4K 60 frames a second in the Z7 Mark II. That will be in the Z6 Mark II. It's coming in some firmware, hopefully early 2021. They both just seem to be a little bit snappier as you use them. It also leads to faster continuous shooting. So you've now got 10 frames a second with the Z7 Mark II and 14 frames a second with the Z6 Mark II. Now 14 frames a second, that's really getting into kind of sports and wildlife territory where you really have a pretty decent high frame rate shooting scenario there. You can capture some really quite fast stuff with 14 frames a second. The buffers have also been improved. So on the Z7 Mark II, we're now looking at 50 RAW or 200 JPEG. And the Z6 Mark II, we've got 124 RAW and 200 JPEG. So that's pretty decent, especially in the Z6 Mark II. I'll be interested to try out some action shots with that to really see how that goes. Similarly, those new processors also mean better autofocus for the cameras as well. So you've got things like improved face and eye detection, you've got animal autofocus, which is super popular now as well, better low light performance as well, especially with autofocus as well. I haven't been able to test that out properly yet because these are, pre-production firmware and it's not all in there, but I'm excited to properly give that a go, because if it's as good and as much of an improvement as Nikon seem to think, that will be very, very nice with these 2 cameras. Now, a big one, especially for a lot of people, a lot of Nikon shooters will be extremely happy about this. Both cameras have got dual card slots. So you've got UHS SD and you've got XQD or CF Express. Now that's a massive, massive thing. A lot of people were very upset with the single card slot, which I totally understand. Especially stuff like weddings, essentially critical stuff that you cannot afford to lose, which basically is weddings to me. I mean, weddings frighten me as it is, right? So the idea of losing all the stuff, no thank you. But 2 card slots now, great. That's a huge upgrade, really. I mean, some people probably argue it should have been in the Mark I, but it's a big thing. Nikon have clearly listened to their customers, and they've now got the dual card slots in there. Something else which is quite big, I think, especially for people who want to shoot all day or events or something like that, there's now proper contacts for a battery grip on there. There's a new battery grip launching with these cameras, which take 2 of the new improved EL16C batteries. That's going to give you much better battery life as well. It's also got an additional control wheel on the grip and a shutter button as well. So it's a nice proper battery grip that you can use with these cameras. Otherwise, there's definitely some stuff which is the same on these cameras as was with the Mark I. So for example, the sensor resolution is the same. We've got 24.5 megapixels with the Z6 Mark II. We've got 45.7 megapixels with the Z7 Mark II. They've both got 5-axis in-body image stabilization, which again, I'm super excited to try out properly with video in particular, because the Z6 Mark I became a really strong video system. A lot of people were using that for really quite high-end video production. And actually, it was kind of an understated thing with that camera. It was just quietly very, very good at video and probably didn't get as much recognition as perhaps some other cameras did, whereas actually the Z6 was very good. And I'm excited to see how the Z6 II performs as well with that, as well as the Z7 Mark II as well. But the Z6 Mark II, obviously it will have that 4K 60. They've both got full HD 120 as well, which is really nice. That's always a nice thing to have in there. Probably something you'd expect, but 4K 60 in both cameras is really good. It gives you a few options for slow motion in 4K with these cameras. You know, it's not 4K 120, but 4K 60 is not bad at all. But in terms of the actual build of the camera, like I say, the bodies are very similar to the Mark I. The grip feels ever so slightly deeper to me. I'm not sure if that's actually the case because I don't have the Mark I here, but it does feel very, very comfortable. You've of course got custom buttons down here. Very ergonomic placement of buttons. The buttons feel good as well. They're kind of slightly raised, which is nice. The screen on the back is still pretty much the same, so it doesn't flip out or anything like that. But I think that's still pretty decent. I still really like that. They're both extensively weather sealed as well. And in terms of weight, they're pretty decent. You know, they feel good quality. They're not kind of ridiculously light, but they're certainly not heavy. I think the Z7 is 705 grams with the battery and the card, so that's really not too bad at all. You pop a lens on there, and you're gonna be able to absolutely handheld shoot with that for hours, realistically. Now that's kind of a quick first look at these cameras. I think when you first look at them, it doesn't look like necessarily that much has changed, but I think there's some pretty critical upgrades in here. Not least, of course, the dual card slot, which I know is a really big deal. They're just quite a lot faster as well than the Mark I, so things like video, continuous shooting, they just feel more versatile than the Mark I versions. Now there's a link down in the description to go and check these cameras out for yourself. That'll be price, full spec, all that kind of stuff. Any questions as well, you can always pop them down in the comments and we will do our best to get back to you ASAP. Like I say, hopefully over the next couple of weeks, we will be able to bring you a full review of both of these cameras with kind of extensive testing and all that kind of stuff, doing loads of photo, doing loads of video. If there's anything specific you'd like to see in those videos, just let us know down in the comments as well, because obviously we haven't shot anything yet, so we'll be able to do that hopefully in the next couple of weeks. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy the video. If you want to see more stuff, of course, I will see you in the next video, and as always, thanks for watching.